back. Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back.
Yes, this is actually a pop-up kind of. We're riding the car home and listening to Seven Bolmar. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but if you do, he's a good cat to listen to. Very mind-opening as far as the esoteric life goes. And from that, we came to some realizations. And so we wanted to share those with you.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the power of commanding your manifestations. That this is really a declaration of what you desire and a knowing that it's going to come true. You don't need to trust anything, you just have to know it's going to come true. And that's different than what we're kind of taught to believe.
Yeah, especially if you come from some of the major religions. I came from Christianity, and a lot of it was prostrating yourself and begging and, you know, like pleading, like, I am so unworthy. Would you please help me with this, dear Lord? I need to ask you a favor. Or, you know, like really from a powerless point, from a powerless, I don't know, foundation or standing, you know. And that in of itself, as far as when we talk about like the power of attraction, or when people talk about the power of attraction or anything, none of that powerlessness brings you anything. And in reality, powerlessness doesn't bring you anything. The people that win the wars are the people with power. You know, whether the people that win battles are the people with power. It's not the powerless that wins. And then, which brings me to another thing. I spent a lot of time in like AA and NA, and they talk about how you are powerless. And that really never sat with me, because if I'm powerless against something, how can I ever stop doing it? You know what I mean? Because I don't have the power to stop doing it. Like, I'm fucked for the rest of my life because of this powerlessness against this. So when we're talking about like commanding something, when you command respect, you don't demand respect, you command things to happen. You know, kings and queens, they command things. You get a command from your what is it, in the military? They command you to do things. They don't, you know, they're not praying and getting on their knees and asking you to get things done, right? So why are we being told to get on our knees and ask for things? You know what I mean? It doesn't even vibe with the actual natural way that the world goes. So why are we asking and pleading and lamenting in order to get things? All right.
It's a good question to ask yourself. Like, why do I believe this? Does it really feel like it resonates with you? You know, resonance is the power of mystical experiences. Everything resonates and vibrates, and sound is information. And so when you hear something and you're kind of like, I don't know, if you kind of have to like cringe to it, that's a message. That's your intuition responding to stimuli in your environment, that you should probably listen to it. That's really powerful to be aware of yourself to that level. Yeah, and this really saves you too from like doubting. So I think one of the things that attracts people to the spiritual journey or the spiritual life is that we come from a very sometimes toxic childhood or upbringing, or just community, right? So like there's these things that we are trying to heal from. That's just natural, okay? You're seeking, and that's fine in a sense. We are going to do another topic on that, inspired by Alan Watts, about not seeking, right? the seeking of things means that we're already lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like an oxymoron there. But anyways, so when we command something that we want or something that we desire, we have the ability then to just rest in the truth that it's going to happen. Or know that if it doesn't, then it wasn't meant for you. So there's like this duality of just accepting that it will or accepting that it won't. In the not doubting it, you can either trust that what's meant for you, it won't pass you by, and or it'll come on its own time. So sometimes we can say, hey, this is what I desire, or this is what I want in my life, and it might not show up for another 6 months or 2 weeks. And that's where we are really tested and to see what we want. If that's really true still, the universe sometimes can test us, or we're still building the resiliency and the skills in our character to hold that ability. And that's also important, because if you got that thing that you weren't quite ready for, you might self-sabotage it. You might like not understand how to really hold it, and it just might crumble anyways. So trusting that it's coming to you at the right time is super important. And an act of self-love of like, okay, yeah, I trust that when it comes, I'll be ready for it. And that gives you the time to train yourself in a very esoteric way. You're building the character to hold it.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. Like, if you're not ready for something, sometimes we want something real bad and we get it and we're really not ready for it. And I think that we can all have examples of that in our lives. And I think one of the biggest ones for me, and tell you the truth, I'm so thankful that it happened. I still got it. I learned my lesson. But one of the biggest things is I worked for a marketing company, and they put me through the ringer, tested my character. It's when my daughter Willow was born. And her mom had her own issues, and I spent a lot of like 16 hours a day at work, and then I'd come home and have to take care of things at home. And it really tested me as a human being and my character and my ability to handle things. And to be honest with you, I couldn't hack it. I couldn't hack it. It was so much. But I'm so grateful that it happened, because then I got to see where I was and where I needed to improve as a human being, as a person. And so I really am glad that you brought that up, because sometimes we want something. And I'm not saying like, and that when I brought this into being, getting this job, I want to work at entry level and worked all the way to management. That's exactly what I did. And it was, way too much for me to do, but I was still happy that I was able to experience that. So be careful, because when I asked for it, I just visualized it every day for, I don't know, it had to be months, like a couple of months. Visualize this happening to me, getting this job. And then a friend of mine, he was the actual manager, hired me. And then I worked my way up, and he kind of told me what to do. And this came about months after I've been visualizing it in my head. So it really works.
So the part about commanding it is that we're remembering that we're telepathic beings. Everything resonates. And so if I, in my mind, have decided that this is going to happen for me, or that this is what I want, then telepathically it goes out in a wave of information. And someone in our environment, if they're also resonating at that, or if they're seeking out that same opportunity or whatever, they're going to pick it up. And we have a couple of examples of how this came to be for us and how it is just magical. And like, believe in it, right? Like, this stuff is real. You just have to open yourself up to believing in it. And we were traveling the United States, trying to find where we wanted to be, and we were running out of money, running out of kind of time to figure it out, right? And we came to this by happenstance, by a few small miracles happening, right? We kept talking to people about who we are and what we're all about, and then staying in the flow and vibe of our essence and being. And these people said, go to this place because this is where you would probably do really well. This is what you sound like. And so we went there, and it was amazing. Very aligned, very vibrant, and exciting to be there. And so again, we were kind of like, okay, sort of show us a solution to, housing and some, not having the resources for that, but then also like needing to network in a new community and things like that. So we, I was just like, let's just drive up the mountain roads, because usually, you can camp in the national forest. However, the mountains that we were riding up were mostly private properties along the way, and so you weren't able just to like pull off and camp. And so that was kind of a bummer, but it pushed us, right, to go in this other direction of seeing where we wanted to be. And there was this one, it was like this beautiful, like in the valley with a river and multiple buildings on the property, this spiritual center. And I was like, look at that. Like, look at that place. It was just so gorgeous. And I was like, we're going to be there. And I just said it, and I just knew it. That's where we're going to end up. But I didn't feel like it was the time to go there yet, or to, so I was like, we'll wait on it. So we went back down the mountain and found a camping spot somewhere else. So that was
a week. We stayed there for like a week.
So we were camping for a week, but a couple days later, though, I was like, you know what? I think it's time that we go up and try to see what's up with these people, right? I think we sent an email but didn't get a response.
Yeah.
So we decided to do the old-fashioned stuff and go to their door. And so that's why Soul is great, because I get an impulse and he's the social one to go follow it. So he went up to the talked to the guy, and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Well, I have a meditation. We're doing a meditation in a couple days. Why don't you guys come to that, and then we can chat. Do you want to talk about what that was like to meet him or go to the meditation?
Yeah, I just wanted to say what I wanted to point out about him coming to the gate is that the time that we showed up and he came to the gate, he usually wouldn't do that because he was right in the middle of a Zoom call. And he decided to come out and see what was going on. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of felt like I should come out and see you. And when I went up to the gate, I was like, hey, my wife, has these impulses, this intuition, and she told me that we should go up there. And so I'm here. I don't know what it means, but I'm here following my wife's intuition. So I don't know. We're really interested in your place. Maybe we could learn more about it. And he was like, hey, you know what? I usually don't come out here. I'm in a Zoom call. How about you take down my number? We'll exchange numbers and I'll hit you up later. And he said, maybe you can come to a meditation in a couple of days. Gave him the information. And then you want to go ahead?
Yeah. I don't know. Then I kind of lost my shit, actually.
Yeah. 2 days later. Because we're camping, though. To be fair, we're camping. We didn't know what we're going to do with our food. We've been camping all the way across the country. And she just had Aspen. So still all the hormones and stuff. So to be fair, she's still processing all that stuff too. Yeah. Breastfeeding
and all the things. Yeah. So it was just looking a little dire and scary, and I fell into fear, and I fell into my programming, my responses of like, oh, see, everything's gonna explode, like we're like homeless, and like all of these like judgments, right? Even though we still were okay, like.
And we camped for the fun of it.
Yeah, we do,
but
right?
This situation was different, right?
Right, so it's like the judgments of like, oh, well, that's technically homeless, but are you? I mean, we chose not to maintain a home in a different sense. So it was like, again, be careful what you ask for, right? Because like
We've been talking about it for like a year before it, and then we got it.
yeah, I mean, and it's not always like in the way we thought it would come, or like then we have to like alchemize all the fucking shit that comes up when you're actually living the manifestation that you asked for.
Yeah.
So it's really like you have to just surrender to it.
Yeah.
And I really so thankfully though, okay, so I was losing my shit. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? This is insane. Like I was losing it. And I was like, this can't, like, I have one more day in me. Like, I can't, something has to come to fruition, right?
Yeah.
And then that day or the next day is when he went to the meditation. It was too late, you know, baby and I were gonna go to sleep.
It was that evening when she had her thing. It was that evening that I went to the meditation because we had Aspen and she needed to go to sleep. She couldn't take any more of anything. And I went to the meditation and met this guy, and he was amazing. Met some friends there that are still friends to this day. Our friends, David and Anastasia, you'll be able to meet them because we want them to do some stuff for us. But anyway, never met the guy. This is the second time that I met the guy, and we're doing a meditation. We're talking, learning a lot of stuff, and he looks at me and says, "Hey, I want to give you, your wife, and your child a place to stay for a month. No charge, just so you guys can try to get on your feet and everything. I want to give you a place to stay, and I'll just have you do some stuff around the property." Right? And that, like, we just met. We could be anybody, but
yeah, she
had the impulse.
So
yeah,
the telepathy part, though, right? Yeah. Back to our major point is that I think it was like 5 days later or earlier when we had first gone up there, right? Yeah. Like I said, we're gonna go there, and then we waited 3 days, and the day after we had gone up there, just the first time, and I sent that impulse out. The next day, he told us later, like after we had known him for a while, that he was standing in the shower and he was like communicating to God or source and saying, "I just feel like I need to help somebody. Can you please send some people to me that need help?" Yeah. Like literally, that's what he was saying. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I sent the impulse out, and then he downloaded the answer or the response to my impulses, right? Or that download came to him.
What are the chances? You know what I mean? Like,
within the next 24 hours. So that's what really, you know, because not only because we showed up, but because he had that impulse before he even knew of us. This was before we went up to the gate and met the guy, right? So that's where I was saying, like, you can create opportunities for yourself, and you can create it by knowing in your bones that this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, she knew.
And then being brave enough to like actually follow through with it and take the action. I think that's like the double, like you have to do both. Yeah. So yeah.
It's like that leap of faith, right? You have to know, you have to be willing to put yourself out there in what you believe, though. You know, like I know it looks different than what we're used to, and that's the biggest part of it. But one of the things that I want to really touch on is that her knowing was so important. Like she knew, there wasn't no doubt, she looked at me and said, "We're gonna be there." And honestly, I was kind of like, "Yeah, baby, yeah. This is a nice place, right? They got a big tree with a labyrinth." Yeah, multi-million-dollar place. And they emptied out a whole building with that usually bunks 10 people, had a kitchen and everything in it, and set it aside for us for 1 month and stuck to their word. So the important thing, one of the number one important things that we want you to understand, there's no begging. There's no pleading. It was a knowing. No. You have to know. That's how you bring it to you. Billy Carson, I don't know if you guys know who that is. He said, he talks about it all the time, and he says it is so easy for him to have things come to him because he knows it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And then as far as a story where I'm concerned, it was the last time that I was in treatment, right? And this is when I really started my journey as far as having an understanding of who I am from a spiritual basis, right? And so what happened was I got into this flow because I knew that everything I was going to do was going to be in line with who I am inside. There was no doubt in my mind. It didn't matter what the rest of the world was doing. I was going to do what was right for me, right? And in doing so, in making this decision, it didn't matter what happened. I don't know if you guys understand what it's like to be in treatment, especially a criminal-based treatment. They are on your ass for everything that you do. On your ass for everything you do. That's when I started learning what sovereignty was. In this place where I am locked down is where I started learning true sovereignty. And what that means is to stand on who you are and where you are going and to not sway from that. And so, just to give you an example, I was doing a lot of painting, right? And I wanted to have a printer so that I can print out these, what do they call them?
Stencils?
Yeah, so I could print out stencils that I could put over my pores and then spray paint the stencil over my pores, right? And I was talking to a friend of mine that took me out to dinner, came back, and right before I got out of the car, I was like, man, I really want a printer so that I can do my stencils and really expand my artwork, right? And then I go inside, I go into my room, and the guy upstairs, Ed, if you're listening, talking about you, he came downstairs carrying a printer. I'm sitting in the living room. He knocks on my door, and he's like, hey, man, I got this printer. I know you do artwork, and my boss, he gave me this. I'm never going to use it. And he gave me this $600 printer, Canon. I still have it to this day upstairs. Just gave it to me right after. And I'm talking about I wasn't out of the car 10, 15 minutes when this guy comes and knocks on my door to give me a printer. That's one. And then another one, same period of time. And because I was in the flow of knowing who I am and where I'm going. And I used to say during that whole period of time, I get what I want, right? I get what I want. But I was very careful about what I wanted to make sure it aligned with who I was, right? And another thing happened, these people come in, this guy didn't have any clothes. He was wearing the same outfit for a week, right? And he was about my size. So I went and gave him half of my clothes out of the closet, right? And my roommate at the time is like, what are you doing, bro? Why would you give that dude half your clothes? Now you don't have very many clothes. I was like, bro, it doesn't matter. I know I'm going to get more clothes. He's like, bro, you're crazy, right? That weekend, I go out back and I'm cleaning up the yard. And under a pile of snow, this is back in Minnesota, under a pile of snow, there was a Coleman tub full of clothes. My size, with tags on them. And there were even a pair of shoes, and I was like, hey, bro, you want a pair of shoes? Because they were his size, not even my size. And I gave him the pair of shoes. And I had clothes, filled my closet back up. And I told him, like, I just knew what was going to happen. Just like she just knew what she was going to happen. So so the biggest thing that we are trying to communicate to you, right? We are co-creators. We all have God's source within us. God's source within us. That means create or destroy. It doesn't matter which one. There's no bad or good about either one. But whatever one you focus on, you're knowing, like you know that bad things happen to you. You know that people betray you. You know all these things, that the government is bad, you're going to be overtaxed, you don't have enough money to pay for anything. You know these things. And then you wonder why it constantly happens all the time. Because you're speaking it into existence from a place of knowing electromagnetic, from a place of knowing. And so now it's time to start focusing in on those knowings that are positive, that want to build your life. And that's how you command things into existence, from that knowing. And all you do is keep focusing in on the positive things that you know have happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't come from nowhere. That came from in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Shit. He's got it.
Yeah, she's got it. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for her. That's real.
I mean, and also the knowing that we were meant to be together was the same knowing we've had on these different knowings. Like,
yeah.
Once you become very clairvoyant and you know how to keep your energy space clear, and you have the energy to be aligned with who you are, and you're not confused and you're not scared. Like, these things come in fast and they come in clear, and it's like, you just know. You get it, and you don't have to question it. And so it's like a spiritual practice of like I call it like keeping to the fire.
Yeah.
Like, hold yourself to the fire. This isn't fire that's gonna burn you alive. It's fire that's like alchemizing all of your wounds into your gains, and all of the things that you need to learn from your pains, right? So like these things that evolve you as a person.
Yeah, all day.
And so Soul was talking about this piece of like, we feel like we know that these bad things are gonna happen to us, like, and he was pointing. I would just say, you feel it in your body because it's something you've lived through and the experience of it, but it's not the heart. Like, he was at a
it's just
that's actually, I would say, like our limbic system, which is back here, your nervous system,
the reptilian brain part.
Yes.
The scared part.
That is fear, right? So like, when we ever go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, like, these responses, these visceral, like, oh no, I'm not gonna have enough money for rent, or I'm not gonna make it through this treatment, or I'm gonna lose my kids, like, whatever the fuck it is for you, like, once that gets turned on, we can't manifest. Please do not try to manifest in that type of energy, because again, that's coming from that energy of the beggar. Because you're desperate. You're desperate for a solution. And it's this that's creating. You can co-create in whatever direction you want. But then you're going to have to pay for it, right? So like, if you're co-creating from your reptilian brain, hold on. And then you wonder why, like, your manifestations aren't working, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've been through that. Like, totally. Like, what the fuck are we doing wrong, right? I thought the spirituality is supposed to work. And then we realize, like, well, we're not in the right energy. And so, like, when you're not in a good place, don't try to manifest things. You just have to Abraham Hicks it or Joe Dispenza it and get out of that energy. By, like he said, focusing on the successes that you have had, or just trying to be neutral. Like, okay, you know what? I feel like shit today, so I'm just going to take care of myself and not worry about anything else. Like, keep it simple on those days. And then once you're in that energy again, or in the flow again, then you're from your heart chakra and your heart space, and that's when you can create.
I like to suggest, when you're in those places where you're not doing all right, or you don't, in the creative juices of where you want to be, the creative flow, it's a good time to do some self-study. You know what I mean? To see and just pay attention to what it is that you are saying and how you do feel. Because when you do that and you fly, when you do that and you shine a light on the dark shadow sides of who you are, that's shadow walking, right? And you're illuminating the darkness within. And when you illuminate the darkness, sometimes you see some pretty ugly stuff about yourself that you want to get rid of, right? Or that you want to maybe even integrate, so that it's not such a negative aspect of being, because the shadow side does help you out, right? And trying to, anything that you try to resist anything that you try to fight, you're trying to fight these negative things, all you're doing is creating more friction, which creates more of what you don't want. You know what I mean? Like when you say, hey, I'm going to snap my fingers, and when I snap my fingers, I don't want you to think about an elephant. Did that work? Now you're sitting here trying to figure out how am I going to not think about an elephant? And so just keep that in mind when you're trying to work on the opposite end of the pole of what you don't want. The best way to not get what you don't want is to try to figure out a way to ignore it, so it doesn't become a frequency anymore within you. And as she said, Abraham Hicks, think of something else that makes you happy, that creates your happiness and your flow, and then come back to what you where that conflict came from. Right? Yeah.
Cool. And the next video that we're going to put out is on shadow walking. So look for that, because it's super important. That it's one of those things that are almost like one of the things that can keep us from having a successful spiritual practice. Like I said earlier, when you're like, oh, I thought this should be working by now, why isn't it working? It's like one of those things that can, if you're not doing it right, it will lead you down some more darker, murkier roads. And so it's possible, you can do all of these things, but the age of the modern mystic is that we are trying to do these things without actually having had the initiation into it, or the proper instruction of it, and or having guides or sages in our village that could teach us, right? So like, don't try to do this alone, please. The journey is yours, but there are guides and there are mentors. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy manifesting.